Feeling like your emails are all over the place with no real strategy? Here's how you can turn your disjointed plan into streamlined success.
Being an online business owner is full of ups and downs. Some days you can't imagine going back to your 9 to 5, and other days you want to burn your whole business to the ground. We get it.
Welcome to Chaos to Conversions, a podcast of practical, no BS strategies to grow your online business. Each week, we're chatting about launching, copywriting, mindset, and more, so you can make sense of the chaos and do more of what works.
Join the conversation and let's grow together.
Welcome back to Chaos to Conversions. Today we're talking about that feeling that your emails are really disjointed. This is something I talk to a lot of different business owners about. And it kind of also goes along with the feeling of like, I don't feel like I really have a good plan. I don't feel like I have a strategy. I feel like I'm winging it when it comes to my content. They're all kind of similar feelings. But when I say disjointed, I mean that it feels like your emails aren't really aligned together. Again, there's no plan. So it can feel like every email is very separated when really your emails can work together to help you sell more, help you nurture better, and build better connections with your subscribers that help them convert. Like I said, that's kind of what I think of when I think of disjointed, as feeling like you're throwing it together without a plan. The problem with disjointed emails, or even just feeling like your emails might be disjointed, is that it can really weaken your engagement, because when you are creating a strategic strategy with your emails that builds on themselves, you're actually getting a lot clearer with your messaging, and you're creating very well-planned opportunities to get your subscribers engaged, whether that be to interact with you, to read something, to watch something, to learn something, right? Or to even do something in their business, like to maybe complete some sort of action. The problem with disjointed emails is also that it doesn't help you reach your business goals. I talked about this recently in episode 55, which is how to do with quarterly planning, specifically how quarterly planning helps you avoid shiny object syndrome. And I talked about how business goals are the key behind a really solid quarterly plan. And when you have disjointed emails, oftentimes they're not working together to meet your business goals. We talk about moving the needle in your business all the time, and moving the needle means being really strategic about the actions that you're taking in your business and the content that you're producing so that you're moving in one solid direction together. Another problem with disjointedness is that subscribers may not be getting enough touch points or consistent messaging. This is something I think a lot of business owners struggle with, is they feel like, oh, I'm talking about the same thing all the time. But really what's happening is you talk about it once in an email, and then the next email you're talking about something completely different. And therefore, if they needed multiple touch points, especially for very specific products or offers that you may be promoting that they need to hear about several times before they're going to make a purchase or an investment, you kind of missed the boat on that one. It doesn't mean that people won't buy the first time you talk about something, but very likely if they're buying the first time you've talked about it, either they really need that thing, like the messaging that you used was really for them, which is great, awesome job on that, or they were already really warmed up. And that's because they've heard you talk about it before. Maybe they saw you post it on social media. Maybe they've used another product of yours that was similar, or had another offer that was similar, something along those lines. So what we want to do is make sure that our content is building up to our offers. And again, we're getting those multiple touch points in. So let's talk about what it can feel like on the opposite end. If we go from disjointed to streamlined, what does that look like? What does that feel like? So it's creating a content plan that helps you with consistency. When you know what you're going to say, when it's intentional, when it's planned, it's a lot easier to show up consistently, because A, you're not thinking of things last minute, and B, you're building on the things you've already talked about. So I think it's kind of like getting on a bicycle, right? Especially if you're short like me. The first time that you hop onto a bicycle and you start pedaling, you're like going up a hill, let's say, it's going to be a lot easier to keep going once I'm already pedaling, right? If I get on the bike and then I get off of it on the middle of my hill and then I try to get back on and start pedaling again, it's going to take a lot of energy to ramp back up. And so that's what we're doing with our content. And that consistency piece is like, if we just keep the machine moving a little bit at a time, one foot in front of the other, it's going to be easier to keep up with that momentum. It's going to help our subscribers move in the direction that we want them to go. It also helps you take the natural progression from one email to the next. So a plan is going to create that pathway. And we'll talk about this more in a second, like how to actually create that pathway. But let's say that in the first email, you're talking about the problem that your subscriber might be facing. Maybe they're an overwhelmed teacher who has a lot going on. Maybe they're a mom who is having some guilt about not doing something around the house, right? And you're trying to help them solve that issue. Maybe they are a business owner who is suffering from shiny object syndrome, right? Then you're giving them the solution to that, either in the same email or possibly in the next email, or possibly several emails from there. You might be talking about the problem a lot before you get to the solution. But again, it's all about that progression. Sometimes when we just jump in straight into the solution, when we haven't yet addressed the problem, the needs, the struggles, the desires, what it could look like if you solve that problem, we're missing the touch points and we're missing the buildup that will help someone make a decision a lot easier. Progression could also be something like sharing educational content to make them more problem aware, or even addressing objections and hesitations before you kind of lead into the solution. So let's go back to like the mom example. Maybe you have moms who feeling really guilty about like working out because they feel like, oh, I should use the free time that I have with my kids, right? And so you can address objections in your content to that or hesitations that they might have to working out to promote whatever kind of solution that you have, right? So you could say, I know you feel really guilty, but when you show up, when you're the healthiest version of you, then you can show up better for your kids, right? That is you like addressing the objection. So a strategic plan also helps you align with your overall business goals and marketing goals. And again, I talked about this in episode 55 with quarterly planning, but a strategic plan helps you make moves towards your goals. Sometimes you may have emails. I think sometimes we think they're disjointed because we're like, oh, well, one week I talked about this product or one week I talked about this service. And maybe those things didn't align together. Okay, but did they align with your overall goal that you have for your business? If your overall goal was visibility or your overall goal was engagement, did those pieces of content at least align with that goal? Then it might not be as disjointed as you think it is. But if you are just like willy-nilly planning things, like you don't know exactly why you're sending that email, you're just like, well, I think I need to promote this product, or I think I need to like talk about this service or whatever it might be, but you don't have a goal that you're aiming for, then that's where the disjointedness is going to come in because you don't have a direction that you're actually moving in. And that's like getting in the car and just, driving. It's like, okay, well, if we don't know where we're going, we're not going to get very far, right? When we have a destination in mind, we can create the content that helps us get there. The last thing that's really important about a strategic plan is the trust, expertise, and awareness. So when we have a plan in mind, we're moving towards those goals, we're keeping it consistent, we're going to build trust with our audience, we're going to establish any sort of expertise that we have so they can get to know us as the person to look to for this problem or this solution, right? Like when it comes to email marketing, I would hope that people trust me in the email marketing expertise that I have or the content planning expertise that I have. And a lot of what I've done to build that is the emails that I create, the freebies I put out, the kind of content I create, like podcasts, to establish that. And also the awareness piece, that is a big part of the consistency as well. If you only are showing up one time to talk about something, your awareness is going to be missing because we often need to hear about things several times before it comes into our awareness. I need to hear about your product, your service, your whatever it might be to be aware of that thing, to know it exists, how it's going to help me, and whether or not it's right for me. Just because we bring our audience into awareness doesn't mean they're going to buy, but they can't buy something that they don't know exists or that they don't know is right for them. Okay, so let's talk about how you can actually create a plan for your emails that is strategic, that is streamlined, can help you get rid of that feeling of like, I feel like I'm just winging it. I don't really have any sort of plan in mind for these. I'm just like throwing emails out. So the first thing you're going to want to start with is defining your quarterly goals. Go back to episode 55 where I talk about this in depth. But essentially, what you're going to want to do here is identify what is that big overarching goal that you have for the quarter. This can be monetary, but generally I like to think of it as like where you want to see your business in 3 months. So for example, maybe you want to focus on client experience, right? Like you want to enhance how that experience looks for your client during onboarding, discovery calls, things like that. Maybe you want to enhance your visibility. You want to bring more people into your audience. You want to make more people aware of who you are and what you do. Maybe you want to promote a new product or a new offer. All of those things could be your overarching quarterly goals. And then you can also break them down into smaller goals like your income goal, your content goal, things like that. But with an overarching goal in mind, what you are doing is deciding the path that you're going to take. It doesn't mean that you won't ever look outside that path. Like if I'm focusing on visibility for my business, that doesn't mean I'm not going to also do other things to help me make money or other things to help me warm up the existing audience that I have, right? Just because I'm trying to bring more people into my audience doesn't mean I'm not also working on the people I have in my audience. So don't think that means like that's the only thing we're focusing on, but that is where we're pushing the majority of our task, right? And our effort and our time and energy. Okay. So once you have a goal in mind, then you can start mapping out your emails. First, you want to start by identifying something that you want to do within this quarter. For example, maybe you want to get more people on your email list. Maybe you want people to sign up for a workshop you're hosting. You want to promote a best-selling product. You want to highlight a new service. Like what is something that you want to do? And you may have more than one thing that you want to do because we're talking about a whole quarter here. Maybe you want to get on more podcasts. Maybe you want to participate in bundles. I don't know. Identify the things or thing that you want to do. Then you're going to decide how much warm-up time you need for this thing. So are you going to need weeks, days? Like how much time are you going to need to get your audience prepared for that thing that you want to accomplish in this quarter? So for example, if you want to put together a workshop and obviously have people attend it, how much time are you going to need to prepare for that? If you want to promote some best-selling products during this quarter, how much time are you going to need to warm people up for that product? So let's talk about some of these specific examples, how that might look. The workshop example, you're probably going to need a lot more lead up time for this, like a few weeks. So what does someone need to know beforehand, before they sign up for your workshop? How can we create a plan for your emails to get them prepared for this workshop and ultimately get them to sign up? You might want to create some educational content around the workshop. Like what are some things they need to know before they join you at this workshop? Maybe you need to make them problem aware. So maybe your workshop is addressing a specific issue that they have, but they might not even realize that they have that problem. How are you going to like gently point that out? Maybe they need to see an outcome first. So you could talk about like what's happening at the workshop or this workshop like that you have in mind and what their life or business or whatever it might be could look like after they implement these strategies. Maybe you need to help yourself establish yourself as an expert. Why should they attend your workshop? Why are you the person to help them with this issue? So again, you're probably going to need a few weeks worth of content for something like a workshop or a launch. And so when you're planning out your emails, you're not going to just be looking at the week that your workshop opens cart, right? And going, okay, I'm going to send out emails, workshop open cart. You're going to need to look a few weeks back and line up pieces of content, specifically emails that prepare them for this open cart, especially like getting them on a wait list, right? Then we look at something like promoting some best-selling products, right? Maybe throughout the month or throughout the quarter, you're like, yeah, I know that this time of year, I always have like my highest sales. I really want to make sure I'm promoting these products, getting them into people's hands so I can meet like the income goals that I have in mind. So for this, maybe you don't need as much warm up for a product, especially if it's in like a certain price range that your audience would feel comfortable buying pretty easily. Maybe your warm up is pretty small. You could have like a blog post that goes out on a Monday that kind of gets them geared up for this product. And then maybe on a Friday, you email them about that product and actually do like a hard sell. Maybe you just highlight the product a couple times throughout the month in different emails, kind of in different ways. And that's your way of doing the multiple touch points. You'll have to decide how much warm up that product needs. If it's a new product, I'm assuming it's not best selling if it's new because it probably hasn't been bought by many people at that point. You're probably going to need more warm up for a new product, especially if it's a product that people aren't as familiar with. So kind of think about that in aspects when it comes to putting together your plan. And the last example is highlighting a new service. Again, like I just talked about, if it's a new product, you're going to need more warm up for that. Same for a new service. Probably going to need at least a couple weeks to get people ready for this service. Let them know what is the problem that you are addressing with the service. What is your unique way of doing things? Why should they come to you for that service as opposed to someone else? You can also share some experiences or transformations that you've had with other clients, especially if you've been kind of testing out this service in the background, as like a beta offer before it goes live, establishing yourself as that expert in that area. So by having these plans, these small little lead ups to things, what we're doing again is getting rid of that feeling of disjointedness. I'm not just sending out random emails and then when it's time for me to promote a product or service or a workshop or whatever it might be, going, okay, here it is. I am thinking of ways and opportunities to prepare my audience for the thing that I want to promote, even if it's a free thing that you want to promote. So your goal might be visibility opportunities, and you might have a lot of free conferences or bundles that you're going to be a part of, and you're promoting those to your list. You might also want to do a little bit of warm up for that. Or again, you might also just want to have multiple touch points in mind. So how are you going to make sure that in your content plan, you've made room to have those multiple touch points so that this collaboration that you're doing, this bundle, is as successful as it can be? When we don't think ahead, that's when we get ourselves into trouble. That's not only when we have that disjointed feeling, but it's when we don't end up being as successful with the goal that we've set for ourselves or with the income that we've set for ourselves, right? Like we're not going to make as much sales possibly because we didn't do enough warming up. We just said, here's the thing without letting them really understand the value, the why behind it. And that's really important. Let's do a quick recap. If you're feeling really disjointed with your emails, like you're just throwing them together, it may be because you don't have a really streamlined plan. So the first thing I want you to do is create a quarterly goal for yourself. If you need help with that, go to episode 55 where I talk about quarterly goals and shiny object syndrome. Really here I'm talking about the power of a goal and how it keeps you focused on one specific thing that you want to do in your business. Then you're going to create maps for your emails and identify some things that you want to do in your business this quarter. Decide how much warm-up time you need to prepare your audience for that thing that you want to do, and then create a plan. That is how you're going to meet your business goals or your marketing goals, build trust and expertise, build awareness, and make more sales and convert subscribers in your business. If you're looking for more in-depth information on creating strategic plans, if you want some more hands-on support with this, I'm hosting Email GPS The Challenge in just a few weeks, and I'd love to see you there. You may have heard of my workshop, Email GPS. It's the same thing, but I've turned it into a challenge. And the reason I did that is because I want to support you more hands-on throughout this entire process. So instead of doing a really quick workshop where you're doing it kind of all on your own, we're going to be hanging out in Slack. And I'm going to be supporting you, answering your questions, looking at your content along the way, your content plan rather, so that you feel really good about the content plan that you create. So if you want help with your content plan and you're interested in the challenge, I will have the link in the show notes.
Thanks so much for joining the conversation today. If you want to learn more about how we can work together on email marketing, launch copy, or content planning, head to therelevantcollective.com. I'll meet you back here next Tuesday for more practical strategies to take your business from chaos to conversions.